I'm going to show you how to apply a little bit of gold leaf. This is a container that I want to leaf the inside of, and I've already coated it with this metal leaf adhesive on the inside. I just used a sponge and dabbed a little glue inside and then wiped down the inside. And I let it set for about 30 minutes, which is what it says on the back of the bottle. These are books of composition leaf. We call it gold leaf, but this is not gold. It's a base metal, and it's sold in packages just like this. It comes in different colors. There's some silver composition, and there's all sorts of variegated colors. But today I'm using gold. And usually, this is a fresh book. Usually the sheets look like this. It's a piece of tissue and then a piece of gold leaf. And this one has little dots of tarnish on it, so we're going to set that aside for later. So this is a sheet of leaf that I'm going to use, and I'm working in the lid of a shoebox with some raised sides around it to sort of keep the mess confined, because once this leaf starts to crumble, little bits of gold leaf will get everywhere. I've also turned off my overhead ceiling fan and my central heat, because any breeze or any disturbance will send the little crumbles of gold leaf all over the place, and you'll be picking them out of the carpet for the next 2 years. So make sure you're in a room that has no sort of wind disturbance, and that you've got a little protection for yourself to keep your gold leaf mess confined. The easiest way to pick up a sheet of leaf is to lick your finger and stick it in the corner. So I'm going to do that. It's very delicate. And I'm going to get my book out of the way. And just sort of push it down into my container. I didn't do a great job of that, but that's okay. I'm just going to fold this over and push it down. I'm doing this very gently, and I'm making sure that I'm touching only the leaf and not the glue underneath. Because if you get glue on your fingers, you will, in very short order, have gold leaf stuck to it. So you always want to work with clean hands, preferably with no lotion on them, because lotion will also cause the gold leaf to stick. I'm just nudging this down very gently. This is a brush with soft bristles. It's just a really cheap paintbrush. And I'm going to use that to mash my gold leaf down and get it up against all the surfaces. And in places like right here, where there is no gold leaf, I can just break off a little section and push it in with my brush. And I'm pushing it against the adhesive. Same thing here. Right here, there's no gold leaf, so I'm just going to fold this over and push the leaf into that empty glued spot. It looks kind of crunchy and kind of a mess right now, but in just a minute we're going to make it look smooth and pretty. Just want to make sure that I get as many areas covered as I can. very often you won't get all the gluey areas covered your first go round, but that's okay. That's where all these little crumbs are going to come in. So now I'm going to be a little more forceful with the brush and just push and do a little scrubbing. And what I'm trying to do is get rid of all the extra crumbs of leaf. And get rid of all the stuff that's around the outside. I'm not using my fingers to pull it off because I kind of want to do as little work with my fingers at this point as possible. Because even though I didn't put any lotion on my hands, there's still oil in my fingers, and that oil will cause spots on the leaf, and it will be less shiny over time. So you just kind of want to handle it as little as possible. I'm scraping out the crumbs. And now I'm going to use a little harder brush. This is a very stiff bristle brush. Now I'm really going after all those little crumbs. And these crumbs are the gold leaf that hasn't stuck to any glue. So we really want to get them out of there because they're not stuck to anything. They're just going to be trouble later on. And this stiff brush really helps me get all these little crumbs off the edge. And my brushes aren't touching any glue at this point. They're only touching leaf, except for this one bristle. And that's important. You want to make sure that you don't start working with the brush until all your little surfaces are covered with leaf and there's no glue showing. Because if you get glue on your brushes, it will start to pull the leaf off your surface and stick it to the brush. And that's a waste of good leaf. So there's one little point right here, I don't know if you can see it with all the shine, that's still silver. So I'm just going to lick my finger and pick up this piece and stick it down in there and see if I can get it to stick. Now this is a relatively flat surface that I'm working on, even though it's the inside of a tin. If your surface is more dimensional, it might take a little more work to get leaf in all of the nooks and crannies. Just take your time, try to work on areas that are leafed and get them covered and brushed off, and work any crumbs that you have into the areas that aren't leafed. And remember to keep your brush out of the glue. So now I'm going to let this set up, and once this sets, I'm going to wipe it down again with the bristle brush and try to get any loose crumbs that are in there out before I seal the tin. I leafed a second tin, and I hope you can see this through all the shine right along this interior edge. It's still silver because there was no glue along that edge. It's a little difficult to see where you've missed the glue. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue on the inside edge and smear it around with my sponge and let this set up for another half hour so that the glue gets sticky, and then I'll relief that section so that it's gold rather than silver. So now I'm going to let this sit. I'm getting ready to do a third tin while I'm waiting for the glue on that second one to dry. And I'm just very gently moving the crumbs of the leaf from the ones that I've done before to the side with a brush. And just sort of sweep it over there. Resist the urge to blow on anything to remove crumbs, like blowing on your brush or blowing on the interior of a tin, because that leads to disaster. One of my fingers is a little sticky. I'm just very gently pushing this into the setup glue, trying to keep my brush out of the glue and only on the leaf. And I mentioned that this is composition leaf, which is a base metal, and sort of brittle, which is why it's very crunchy. They also make leaf out of gold, real gold and real silver. And it's sold as gold leaf and not metal leaf or composition leaf. And the difference between the two is price. Real gold leaf is very expensive. But also that gold is a very soft metal, and it actually bends rather than crunches around contours. So gold leafing complex shapes with real gold leaf is really a joy. I've only worked with it a couple of times in my life, and I was doing work for other people because I can't afford it. It was just lovely. So if you ever have the opportunity to work with real gold leaf, I highly recommend it. So now I've got all my surfaces covered, and I'm just going to go through the same process again, wiping this down with the soft brush first to make sure I have leaf stuck to all the surfaces, and then with the bristle brush. If your brush starts to look like this, little tiny grains of leaf sticking to it and not coming off with a flick of your finger, that means that you have glue on the brush, and you should rinse it out and let it dry, and either work with another brush or wait until your brushes are completely dry to resume your work. So here I have this little pile of crumbs and one bigger piece. What do you do with all the stuff that's left over? Well, if it's a bigger piece that's useful, you can open up your book to a blank page and just lift that piece and lay it down in the book and save it for later. Now these little crumbs over here, remember those areas on some of these tins where I reapplied glue? I'm just taking a crumb and pressing it into the glue very gently, and I'll let this sit for a minute and then wipe it down with my two brushes, and hopefully all of that stuff that's still silver will be gold again. So you can use the little crumbs to fix your boo-boos, and then you can also just sort of scrape them into a little plastic bag and use them for small jewelry projects. Or I like to put them in tiny bottles when I'm doing assemblage work. I'm always looking for a filler for little bottles of magical things, and little crumbs of gold leaf look really cool in a bottle. And then if the pile of crumbs gets too big, I will often throw it away because there's an ample supply of crumbs when I'm gold leafing, but there's not always a good way of using them. So if they've been sitting around for a while, or if I'm doing another gold leaf project and I'm about to make another pile of crumbs, generally I'll toss the previous one. So now my gold leaf has set up for a few minutes. I'm just taking a Kleenex. You can also use like a piece of t-shirt or any soft cloth. I'm just kind of wiping around the inside just to get out any more little crumbs. There's still a couple places that are a little crunchy on this one, so I'm going to let it set a little while longer and then brush it with my soft brush. And I wanted to mention that when you're using a brush, be really careful, especially when you're using a bristle brush, because this brush can actually scratch the surface of the metal. So you want to be very gentle. I use a little more pressure with the softer brush than I do with the bristle brush. The bristle brush, I try not to use any pressure at all. Just rub it over the surface and try to catch any little crumbs. So I'm going to let this one set a little while longer before I push any harder with my brush. Still got a couple pieces that are not letting go, and I don't want to push too hard and disturb the tacky glue underneath. So now I've dusted these all out, and I've put my box lid away, and I'm just going to give these a very light coat of clear acrylic glaze. I'm using glazing liquid, but you can use any clear glaze. Diamond glaze is fine. I like water-based glazes, but if you like some other type of glaze, that's fine too. Just be sure that it's glossy and not matte, because matte tends to dull down the look of the leaf. Now just let these dry, and then they'll be ready to use.